During the past year, the pandemic continued to keep us from travel and adventure. Yet our community book club took us everywhere. We dove into stories across the world and close to home. Stories that touched every aspect of our lives and culture: race, politics, justice, gender, friendship, climate, wildfires, Hollywood. Our shared reads ranged from a president's memoir to a tennis champion's story of coming of age and coming out to a nostalgic tale of growing up on television. Our book club continued to be a welcoming and safe place to discuss the most pressing and difficult issues of our times. Even November's riveting conversation about the nation's enduring legacy of slavery was an occasion to bring people together rather than pull us apart. Here's where the book club took us in 2021. In January, author Lisa C. transported LA Times book club readers 6,000 miles away to the island of sea women. C's best-selling novel introduced characters inspired by the real-life Haenyeo, a culture of legendary women divers on the Korean island of Jeju who hunt seafood in the ocean depths without breathing equipment. In February, novelist Charlotte McConaughey joined us from Sydney, Australia, for a tumultuous fishing vessel voyage from Greenland to Antarctica in search of the last Arctic terns. McConaughey's eco-thriller Migrations unfolds in a near future when climate change has accelerated to a devastating pitch. The animals are dying. Soon we will be alone here, she writes in the book's opening lines. In March, we went to Paris. That's the setting of The Committed, Viet Thanh Nguyen's sequel to his Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Sympathizer. Nguyen says his protagonist, a half-Vietnamese, half-French communist double agent, is still a man of two faces and two minds. But in the new book, the unnamed spy is a refugee in 1980s Paris, a revolutionary without a revolution. In April, we went inside the White House. Former President Barack Obama talked with filmmaker Ava DuVernay about writing A Promised Land. His fast-moving memoir puts readers in the room at defining moments of Obama's groundbreaking presidency. Obama also offered advice for young activists and answered questions from 2 LA high school students.
Hi, my name is Streak Stone, and I'm a senior at Inglewood High School, and I'm also an aspiring filmmaker. Right now, we're in a period of being extremely divided, and we're finally starting to see our first signs of hope. President Obama, what do you think is the most important next step in overcoming our differences as a nation?
The one thing that I think we can do is work to see each other's humanity and understand that we all are deserving of dignity and respect, and that we all can abide by a certain process for resolving those differences.
In May, Irvine novelist Charles Yu shared his journey from corporate lawyer to TV writer to National Book Award winner. Yu discussed his long struggle to write Interior Chinatown, a satirical novel that explores how Hollywood and society trap Asian Americans in stereotypical roles. In June, we went to the ER. Author and emergency medicine physician Michelle Harper shared the stories behind The Beauty in Breaking, a memoir about race, gender, and the humanity of patients marginalized in hospitals. Harper also offered insights into the daily sacrifices and struggles of medical workers in a best-selling book that debuted in 2020 during the depths of the pandemic. In July, filmmaker Rodrigo Garcia shared a contemplative account of losing both of his parents. He wrote A Farewell to Gabo and Mercedes about his father, Nobel laureate Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and mother, Mercedes Barcha. The slim volume is sprinkled with family photographs and passages from his father, whose books include the literary classic 100 Years of Solitude. In August, tennis legend Billie Jean King took us from the public tennis courts of Long Beach to center court at Wimbledon to the epicenter of her lifelong fights for women's rights and fairness. In All In, King writes about being outed as a lesbian and seeing corporate sponsors desert her overnight. In September, journalist Jamie Lowe showed us the front lines of California's wildfires through the experiences of the women inmates who volunteer for intense fire training and risk their lives to save a state in peril. Lowe's book, Breathing Fire, was inspired by the death of a 22-year-old inmate who was killed working the fire lines in Malibu just 6 weeks before her release date. Depending on the year, inmates make up as much as 30% of California's wildland fire crews. In October, director Ron Howard and actor Clint Howard showed us what it was like to grow up on some of the most popular TV shows of the 60s and 70s. At age 6, Ron became a familiar face on The Andy Griffith Show and moved on to Happy Days, while brother Clint starred opposite a giant brown bear on Gentle Ben. In our first in-person book club night in 20 months, the Howard brothers talked about their Oklahoma-born parents, their lives as child actors, and why they finally decided to co-write a memoir, The Boys. In November, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones brought her gripping and groundbreaking The 1619 Project, A New Origin Story, to book club night at the California African American Museum. When her book got a green light, she didn't want to mince words in her sweeping exploration of slavery and its continuing legacy in America today.
One of the decisions that you made that you note at the beginning of the book is about language. And
Yes.
we're journalists, language is important. And the decision to not use plantations,
Yes.
where we still have weddings and ceremonies, people can visit them, but rather forced labor camps, to not call human beings slaves, but rather an enslaved person. So, yeah, explain your thought process.
Yes. So, as you said, as journalists, as wordsmiths, we know how much language matters, how language can either reveal or obscure. And when I got the green light and we started bringing in the writers for the project, I created a style guide of language. And the style guide said, yes, we will not call human beings slaves. Slavery was a condition, wasn't who you are. Slavery was intended to dehumanize and strip Black people of their humanity. We won't do that with our language. We weren't going to use blacks as a noun, which is my biggest pet peeve. There's no blacks. There's Black people, Black women, Black children, but we don't say the blacks. And that we were going to call plantations slave labor camps, because that's what they were. When you think about the image that the word plantation evokes, is Gone with the Wind. It's bucolic, it's mint juleps, and it's these beautiful dresses. And undergirding all of that is torture and the threat of torture.
In December, best-selling author and indie bookstore owner Ann Patchett joined us to discuss her new book, These Precious Days, with columnist Steve Lopez. When the pandemic hit, Patchett had decided the year 2020 didn't seem like a great time to start a family or a business or a novel. So she assembled a story collection about the people and subjects most dear to her in these precious days. Patchett also focused on running Parnassus, her Nashville bookstore.
What is the secret to small independent bookstores? What can they offer that the giants can't?
Curation, that would be where I would start. You know how if you go to your favorite little Italian joint and there are 6 things on the menu and they are so thoughtfully prepared and they're specific to the restaurant, you love them, the menu changes all the time. And then the next night you go to the Cheesecake Factory and they hand you something that looks like the Los Angeles Yellow Pages, and you have to figure out what you're going to have for dinner. And by the time you get to the end of the menu, you feel sort of sick. So that's part of why a little bookstore works. It's curation. Somebody has gone through and picked the books that they think that their customers are really going to relate to. And a lot of it is just service, the staff. If you have a little store, you're hiring people who are readers, and who really know the customers. They remember what the customer read the last time, what they liked. Our manager at Parnassus is a guy named Andy Brennan, and he had been a manager at Borders before he came to us. And he said at the end of the Borders days, the word from corporate was, if somebody comes in and applies for a job and they say they're a reader, don't hire them, because readers are introverts and we want to hire extroverts. That's the quickest way to kill a bookstore.